Find out what's the general state of our country. What's the current situation? What must we do? Find out on The State of Affairs with Trevor Lindsay.
State of Affairs, our news program. We have the likes of Sir John SWAN, Bermuda's longest serving premier. I got to give him his respect and his dues. Sir John, welcome.
Well, Trevor, it's nice to be here. Believe me, it's always nice to be around you because you always can be very provocative and very informative. And more importantly is you ask some deep questions sometimes, which are necessary. So I look forward this morning to being able to try to answer those questions. I think it's essential that the public be as informed as possible.
Yes, sir. Let's jump right in. We're going to start off with the CARICOM topic.
Yes.
And then you had that press conference done at your location on Front Street. The feedback from the ruling government, and I'm going to call his name, Minister Raban,
Yes.
was a little disheartening. Your thoughts on their response, his response?
It's not for me to decide what Raban does or doesn't do. And, freedom of speech is one thing that I have a great respect for. But respect is something I have a greater respect for. He made that choice, and I think the public answered the issue, not me. I have not commented on it, and I won't comment on it.
Yeah.
I think the public should. I think he got the message, and I think the government got the message. They do not want CARICOM in the form that it's proposed, in any form at all. And Bermudians have a reason for it, and one day I will have the opportunity to articulate why we need to step forward, not backwards.
So CARICOM, in your words, it's not a good venture to go into right now.
Well, what does it offer? The government promised to come forward with ideas that's going to why we should join CARICOM. Well, we haven't heard those ideas yet. Why shouldn't we join CARICOM is why I put up, and it's because even when I was negotiating for the treaty, the idea of discussion about CARICOM was there then. And the American government said to us, look, you have a very special relationship with us.
Mm-hmm.
You should concentrate on benefits you can get that might be outside of CARICOM's terms of reference in terms of the CARICOM itself. You're not trading partners because what are you going to trade? You don't have any resources, so what are you going to do? On policy matters, you made a major step in getting this insurance treaty to boost your economy and so forth. And you have negotiating with the British government if there are concessions that you need. Just like you work to get the concession through the British, we had to get permission from the British to get the concession to negotiate for the treaty. You can seek other negotiations. That's a step forward. So I think that being an associate member allows Bermudians to participate in activities that the Caribbean or CARICOM has. But I don't see any material benefits and I think the way the world is going now, it even makes it more challenging because, at the end of the day, Russia will be Russia and it will be back in Atlantic as it was in the Cold War. China might be because it's already down the Caribbean doing things down there. And we have to decide how we're going to move forward in protecting Bermuda and being able to get trade. We'll run out of money. Let's be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
We need money. And I think we have to move forward as to what we can negotiate as we did with the treaty in terms of conditions that might bring revenue in. I mean, the 15% tax limited to $750 million worth of business is going to be a small amount. It's not going to be what people think is going to be this massive. If it's $200 million, well, look at the debt and what we have to service in terms of paying for the interest on money.
Mm-hmm.
Then look at the infrastructure that we need.
Mm-hmm.
That $200 million will be eaten up just like that, and we still won't be doing some of the infrastructural work that we need.
That's needed. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But it was suggested that your out of touch. How do you take that?
Well, look, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Okay.
I'm a private citizen. I try to do my best for Bermuda, as I've always said before. I love Bermuda. I love its people, and I will do my best. Bermuda's been good to me, and I have a sense of obligation to give back the best I can. It's not for any particular gain, but what it is to try to carve up a future that's going to make Bermuda work.
Mhm.
And at the moment, working for some, but it's more and more not working for many others. And I get worried because you see the exit out of Bermuda. You look at the polls, if the polls are true, there is a sense that Bermudans don't feel like they're really attached. I grew up, we all loved Bermuda, we were attached to it, we felt the heartbeat of Bermuda. So I'm that generation that really lived with the heartbeat of Bermuda.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing is we're losing the heartbeat of Bermuda by the people that were here working to build Bermuda to what it is today. And now I understand that 80% of people buying property are people with PRCs, not Bermudians.
Wow.
If a Bermudian goes to the bank to get loans, and I have them come to see me, they get the PRC people buying them for cash. So, we need to reestablish Bermuda again as a prima facie operation that serves everybody. And the insurance business is never going to do it. We can't tax them anymore. They've said, you got a 35-year deal on that. We increased the payroll tax, and they got very angry about that. They know that the 15% tax is something that's imposed on us. And if we don't do it, we could lose business. So I understand why it's being done. But it's not going to be the answer, panacea that people think it is. We've switched to the next big word out there is fintech. I see a lot of noise and motions, but I don't see the reach and the grab that's necessary. We're deep in debt, underfunded pension, hospital really in debt and not operating properly. You have the police service short of manpower because of budget cuts. You have our roads collapsing, our bridges collapsing. We need to do all these things if we're going to keep up with ourselves. With America, America's having a boom. We should be having a boom too, but we still are in a bust. In 2010, our economy dropped down to $6 billion worth of trade. We're now up to $6 billion worth of debt.
Wow.
When you take the hospital, the airport, the government stated debt of $3.5 billion, and the underfunded pension funds, we're pushing $5.5–6 billion. You got to pay interest and service all that, and then you got to refund the pension fund that people who are entitled to get money. We can't do that just by nitpicking. So a whole new approach needs to be. We did the approach back in 1981, 82, 83. When we were on our back, we had no tourist trade, and then all of a sudden we managed to get the treaty through, and the economy grew and so forth. And I've always believed you have to be physically responsible. In other words, you have to watch your pennies, watch your budget. I do it with my business. Watch what you have to spend, and don't spend beyond what you can spend. At the same time, you got to have a social conscience. I give away money, but I do it very quietly. I try to help people, and some of the people I've helped.
Yes, sir.
That allows them to sort of survive if I can. It's gotten overburdensome now because I feel sympathetic for people, and I try to do my best, but there's only so much one individual can do. And they come to me because they don't know anybody downtown. I mean, you've got a lot of wealth in Bermuda, but nobody knows them. So nobody goes to them for help.
Wow.
So they come to me, and I direct them sometimes to other people. So we've got an upside-down economy. The people with the money, nobody knows. And the people without money,
everybody knows.
Everybody knows because they're crying like hell and making a lot of noise.
Yes, sir.
And I don't blame them for making noise because that's, they don't fit into New Bermuda. I want a Bermuda that everybody fits into, and that we can help to look after people.
Next year, it would be 40 years since your administration, since you stepped on.
Yeah.
1995, 40 years. When you stepped on, you left Bermuda in surplus. And I know 40 years ago, it's many moons ago, the state that we see ourselves now, as you just stated, the economy, infrastructure. Infrastructure speaks volumes on the state of an economy. How do we fix this, Sir John?
Well, we used to brag about the Caribbean and the roads.
That's right.
down
That's
the
right.
Caribbean.
Jamaica roads. We used to talk about Jamaica roads.
Oh no, Jamaica
Now-
roads, many other roads.
I'm seeing the Jamaican roads and potholes.
And now
what worse?
our roads are pretty bad shape. I mean, roads are a statement to the locals and international people. Roads are a statement to anywhere you go. If the roads are bad, roads are tarmac and some stone, heated asphalt with some stone, and it's laid and some labor. It's not a magic, and we say that our plants are broken down. Well, the plants couldn't have been broken down for the last 3 or 4 years, and the roads have been in bad shape for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We see other contracts going on. We're building a hotel in Owen. I'd rather put the money in the roads than put the money into the hotel that's being built on South Shore with it. Because at the end of the day, if our roads are good and people come to Bermuda and want to come to Bermuda to build other properties, whether it's Aerial Sands or whether it's Alba Beach or whether it's Southampton, Princess Hotel up there in Southampton, or other places in St. George's where you got trying to go down to St. Regis and you got to go through a lot of bumpy roads to get there. Think about it. We should have put the money in the roads and made sure our roads are number one. And the safety factors. I mean, you got potholes now that if people ride in these little small cars with small wheels, get in a pothole, they could flip.
Yeah.
Or somebody riding a bicycle, not paying attention, and they hit that.
Nighttimes, our roads are dangerous. Nighttimes, especially.
What's that?
Nighttimes, our roads are dangerous. Our roads are dangerous day and night, but night's even worse, especially on a bike.
You don't see them.
That's right, on a
You
bike.
don't see the potholes until you. In fact, when you see it's too late, right? So we need to do something about that. I mean, and we can't use excuses like our tarmac. Two tarmac plants
are
not working. I mean, what? Fix the damn thing. Bring somebody in to fix them. Or bring in a damn new plant. We're talking about a lifeline and people's lives at risk. And people, you hear all these accidents. I'm not sure what they're related to these or not. But the fact is, people are getting very scary of our roads. And so we need to bring Bermuda up to speed. And I'm afraid the balanced budget is a cutback on cost in order to make the public feel as though you're doing something. That's sad, really sad. I mean, don't lie to me when it's not that. I fire people for lying to me.
Well,
one thing I do is I fire them. If you work for me, if I can't trust you, you're gone. And the government has to be in a trust position where it is, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to facilitate you. I'm not here to do a job. I'm not here to build a hotel in Warwick. If the private sector wants to buy it and build it and put the money into it, we might help you to do it, but we're not going to be doing it, So it's this thing that bothers me because we take one step forward and 2 steps backwards. I had an uncle. He was an alcoholic. You know what he'd do? He'd get so damn drunk to get home, he'd put his back to where he wanted to get to because he always took 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. And I said to him one day, I said, "Uncle, why you do that?" He says, "Because I don't fold on that way. I stumble, but I don't fold on.
Okay.
It just takes me a hell of a lot longer to get to where I want to get to, son." And I can tell you, that's what we're doing right now. We articulate as though we're making 1 step forward, but we're really taking 2 steps backwards. All you have to look at the state of affairs of the economy. You got a $6 billion, 6.2, 6.3 billion. That was the same economy we had 20 years ago. It's the same economy we had 2010. What is that? 12 years ago.
I'm going to go out on a limb, Sir John.
Huh?
I'm going to go out on a limb with this next statement. Your administration had businessmen, doctors, lawyers, business owners. In the administration we have today, they're nowhere in comparison.
I don't blame
Is that because of a lack of understanding or experience or even business sense?
No, it is how our economy has evolved. I don't blame the POP on this one. I blame the business community who decided they want to make money so badly and never want to offend the government because they might not get their work permits. Fear that they've told their staff, you don't get involved with politics.
Wow.
What they were saying is you don't get involved with politics because the OBA and the UBP's members came from a business community, and so did some of the PLP, like Cox, Eugene Cox.
That's right.
Gilbert Darrell, and many of them came from the business world. So what you have now is the business community, by and large, out of fear, not encouraging their people to get involved. So I can't blame the PLP. They have to get what the members they can find.
Okay.
I mean, Curtis Dickinson was a good example of a person coming out of business.
Yes.
Which everybody respects. But he didn't fit into the mold of PLP. And they were afraid of him. And I guess in some ways he was afraid of them. There was no love. And there's only two powers. There's fear and there's love.
Mm-hmm.
And love gives you energy. And I question whether there's real love. I think we'll begin to lose our love. I see a sign that says love. Fear destroys love, destroys energy. And what you have in Bermuda now is when you listen to the talk shows, you listen to people, you walk the streets, there's this fear, this constant fear of what's going on, how I can survive in Bermuda. And what more importantly, it doesn't seem like anybody's listening. And instead of what we have to do now is to go back and say, how do we get ourselves out of this mess we're in? Economic mess, which leads to a social mess, which leads to a political further polarization, which leads ultimately to a disaster. And we could have, if we got downgraded, let's say that, we show that we can't really pull our finances together, and we get downgraded, these international companies here have to be in a country that the grade level is at least equal, if not higher than what their level is. Mm-hmm. We could lose overnight a big piece of our business. And United States, as powerful as it is, it was downgraded just recently. Or we could find out our Bermuda dollar gets downgraded, and since Bermudians basically are paid in the Bermuda dollars, instead of paying a dollar for something, they're paying $1.10, $1.20 for something. Happened to Jamaica, it happened to other parts of the world. Or you lower your standards, and the problem is with high cost of living in Bermuda and everything, you can't lower your standards unless you have some draconian application, like lowering the value of your currency. Because, these prices are just rising and rising. There are a lot of people making a lot of money, by the way. I think to be honest about it, what I worry about is government doesn't understand is that there are people in the domestic economy making a lot of money and they're sending it overseas. They've lost faith in their own country because they don't have a relation to fear of government is pumping money out of the country.
Hold that thought.
The show will resume after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Find out what's the general state of our country. What's the current situation? What must we do? Find out on The State of Affairs with Trevor Lindsay.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us on this edition of State of Affairs. We are live in studio with Sir John SWAN. As we were speaking moments ago, just before the break, one might say, Sir John, that you're speaking doom and gloom.
What's that?
One might say you're speaking doom and gloom. How do you respond to that?
I'm not speaking doom and gloom. One of the things I do is It's my perception of what I see things.
Yes, sir.
It is, if it's reality to you, that's fine. If it's doom and gloom to you, that's fine. If it's doom and gloom, you should try to figure out how we can deal with it.
Mhm.
If not, you go to your doctor tells you that you've got an ailment, that you need to do something about it, and what you do is you simply say, oh, I can't worry about that, and you go away, and the ailment can get worse and worse, and after a while you go back to the doctor and say, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it because, by the way, you waited too long now, and all I can tell you is make yourself comfortable.
Good stuff. Wow.
So, I'm not here to appease the public
Yes, sir.
or the government or anybody else. I'm here to give my perception about how I see things. And doom and gloom, you tell somebody who's leaving Bermuda to take their family or going out of Bermuda or thinking about leaving Bermuda, if that's not a doom and gloom experience that they're
8,000
going
people.
through.
8,000 Bermudians so far.
I'm not sure how many. I'm not going to be conjecturing. I don't know. We haven't had a census in Bermuda for how long
Wow.
that it's disgraceful. We should have one every 5 years because of the nature of our society and everything else. The international tendency is to do once every 10 years.
Mhm.
I think we've gone over our time. We should be having our census to know what is the composition of Bermuda, both in terms of people, but we don't know. So what we're doing is going on conjecture and what the media says, what the polls tell us. And if you look at the polls, there is a lot of doom and gloom out there.
Mhm.
And there's no sense me coming here and giving you a sweet talk and telling you everything is okay.
And it's not.
It's everything is going to be okay. It's going to be okay if you do something about it. That's Bob Marley, was it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He just celebrated 79 years of his day of birth, if he was still with us. But budget is on Friday.
Yes.
Budget is on Friday, sir.
Yes.
What are you expecting to hear? The premier spoke of a balanced budget, and you just said, at what cost?
I mean, a balanced budget there should be a budget that says we've done what's needed to be done, and we've got some money left over, or we don't have money left over, but we've done what we're supposed to do. Done.
That's what a balanced budget is?
Only the public can judge. Only the public can judge whether that balanced budget is a legitimate budget or is a concocted budget. Only the public. You know what Bermuda was like. You know what we've had. You must be blind if you don't read the papers and see some of the things that are, or listen to your neighbors or listen to your friends, knowing full well what's out there that's happening to Bermuda in terms of deterioration.
Mhm.
So what is a balanced budget? If I take money from you and keep you from eating and keep you from being able to pay your bill, and at the same time, I don't pass any of it back to you, and at the same time, I spend a lot of it and only have enough left that I can say, oh, by the way, my affairs are balanced, but your affairs are deteriorated. And I think that's what we're seeing. The international business is growing. There's no question about it. We see it in the paper.
Mhm.
But it's not going to give us the type of money we need. The 15%, it's not going to give us the money we need. It's contrary. No, and the thing about politicians, and I was a politician, I was a leader, I went out of politics. They're only around for so long. By the time they leave office, the problems haven't been solved. But they've done their thing and moved on. What you want to do is have politicians want to leave a mark that when I left something worthy of leaving behind. I don't see politicians doing that today. I mean, in education, when I remember talking to the Minister of Education at Victor Scott School when they had a program on, and I said to him that time, I said, Minister, what you're trying to do, you're never going to do. I said, you're trying to do something without educating the Bermuda public as to what needs to be done. Where are the statistics that tell us the birth rate for the last 20 years and how the curve has occurred? Where are the demographics in Bermuda in terms of where people are living and how many birth rates they're having where they're living? So that when people see you making a decision, it's on the basis, yes, I understand why he's doing it. Now, the minister had all good intention, but I think a bit of this undesirable application. You got to have intention and proficient and profound application. So the public feels as though he knows what he's doing. And if I disagree with him, at least I know why I'm disagreeing. But the public just got very confused. I hope he's now settling it down and coming back to what our discussion was and moving along. But that's what leadership is all about. It's about guiding your ministers and guiding your system in a direction that has a coherent process and a more definitive and acceptable conclusion. That's critical thinking.
You made mention of the business community. The monies that flow, the dollars that flow through Bermuda and the business that are here, can we not tax that money that goes through goes through?
Are you talking about the business community? There's two types. There's three economies in Bermuda. There's the international business like reinsurance and insurance and financial services.
Exactly. That particular one.
The business that service Bermuda, like accounting firms, law firms, and communication firms that used to be Bermuda firms, are now foreign owned.
Okay.
There are very few. There are only two major commercial businesses in Bermuda right now of any significance in trade in Hamilton. People's Pharmacy and Brown & Co. Tell me another one in the black community. Wow. They're all gone.
Wow.
And most of the business, whether it's Belco or Telco or the banks or the law firms, accounting firms that used to get dividends and reinvest their dividends in Bermuda are now owned by foreigners who get their dividends and take it overseas. They're paid automatically overseas. So the money is not coming back. That's why the government has a problem.
Okay.
Now, so there's the Bermuda economy international-wise, there's Bermuda economy service-wise, and there's the Bermuda economy domestic-wise that provides services to these companies, right? Service to these companies. And then there's Bermuda, which is civil servant-wise. So there are four different, and the civil services and economy itself, there are 7,000 people involved with providing all these yes and no answers and facilities and garbage collectors and firemen and policemen, everything else, teachers. But they are controlled by the government, and the end result is you don't have much say if they decide they're not going to fund these things in order to take and look good. But the bottom line is, and the business community, you have no control over those other two entities. We should have something that says, if you do a certain level of business, you will have your auditors you have an audit commission that will look at whether you should be taxed at a certain level. So government's got to a stage where it doesn't understand. It doesn't have any means of revenue that can increase enough just with inflation. Just with inflation. If you've got a 5% inflation on a $6 trillion economy, right? You need 300 million growth per year just to keep up with that. And to do that, you need to be able to find that you got to get money in now to do that. Now, government's saying we'll get 200 million. You're still short. And then you've got to do remedial work that hasn't been done. You can't. So the only way you can do it is by, instead of going to CARICOM and looking to feel good, is to look at North America and look at Europe and look at NATO, which we used to be a part of the bases and everything else, and start negotiating on a more higher level of what benefits we can get out of where we are, what role we can play, and how we can better service protect these operations. Don't let the Chinese in, don't let the Russians in, don't let the Iranians come around in our international waters or in our territorial waters. And what price they're prepared to pay for that. We trade with these countries. They take our money that we bring in, and we're not getting very much return out of it. We bring it in and we turn around and give it back to them to buy more goods and services. But the end result is we're a small country, but we don't have anything to sell back to them. So what benefits can we get? I think we have to think differently than we've thought in the past. CARICOM won't serve their purpose for it. Only we can do. We did it with the treaty, and I believe there's another way we can get this country back on its feet very fast again. And even if you build buildings now, it's so bad, bricks and mortar, you're paying $1,000 to $1,500 per square foot. Unless there's a company that really wants to have a headquarters and prepared to pay excessive money and buy the property and then put all that money into, as you see going on Front Street now, but there won't be many of them. So we have to find a way in which we get revenue and really bring Bermuda up to date. I mean, I produced the Bermuda plan 15 years ago, 20 years ago, on Front Street. I was completely ignored by government and by the Corporation of Hamilton. I spent a lot of money. Lindbergh and Simmons and myself, we did it, and they won a contest. I paid them $10,000 for that winning that contest. I paid another junior group $7,500, another amateur adult group, and then a school group $5,000. Plus, I fixed up the place to make it suitable. I never got a moment of gratitude from the government or from the Corporation of Hamilton.
Do you think that plan can still work today? The Bermuda plan?
The plan will still work today, but you know, the corporation is now in trouble. It went and sold some property to somebody who should never have had it. They got this lien against them for $18 million. They've got the government saying
Colorado car park.
They got the government saying they're going to take them over. It's the first time I've ever heard of a municipality being taken over by a government, but that's new and novel. I think that's why it's hanging in the Privy Council for that long. I mean, we just do nonsense things and think we're going to make progress.
He said the government wanted.
They should be sitting down as partners in this little small 21 square miles and sit down as partners and talking about how we're going to make Bermuda work instead of being adversarial to each other. It makes no sense. We've become a nonsensical. We laugh at America, laugh at the President of the United States. We laugh at Trump. We laugh at what Americans are doing in Congress. We laugh at the Supreme Court. Thank God we got Larry Musson up there, as we've had the other Chief Justice, at least maintain. And thank God we've had the Monetary Authority. They're the two sound balancing acts.
Okay.
But what are we doing? We laugh at America. I sit around dinner tables and people, and you walk the streets. Oh, those crazy Americans, isn't it? I think we need to take a look at ourselves.
Do you think that with the government looking to take over the municipalities, they want the revenue coming in from the city?
I think there are a lot of assets. They have no debt, but they have debt now. They have this liability of having to pay, and maybe they have the money. I don't know what they have and don't have. But I do know that they have a lot of property in the city that's assets that are non-incumbent. They've got some very valuable property. The docks is one example. Pollyville parking lots is a good example. They've got big property on Left End Street. That's another good example. They've got the Fort Hamilton up there, and they've got other properties around Hamilton. There are a lot of assets in the corporation paid for by the business people who pay taxes to the corporation. I'm not sure how you separate taking over assets really that don't belong to the corporation. They are assets that were paid for by the taxpayer in Hamilton. The property owners in Hamilton paid those taxes. And government saying, now we're going to commandeer those things, put them in our portfolio and do what we want to with them. And when you look at what's happening to the rest of Bermuda in terms of degradation, it frightens me if that thing follows through with Hamilton. Now, Hamilton is policed by policemen that's under government, not under corporation.
Okay.
And when you see the deterioration that happens along Front Street, which is supposed to be our main window of alone, that should tell you, my God. So we'll complain even more and have less. At least the corporation keeps the flowers going, paints their places up, and puts lights up and does things and gives you a nice Christmas look and so forth, or when events take place. They got some order to them. So what you're saying now is we're going to get corporation We're going to get the public works, parks, and whatever they want to call themselves, out doing what the corporation does now. And they're saying that's going to be more efficient. Well, I haven't seen the track record of efficiency. I mean, they spent a lot of money down roundabout, both roundabouts, digging up and everything else. And we then got some presentation of some cottages down there, but I'm not sure what they represent, except Bermuda cottages, plywood and paint. And then some trees on the other side. I thought it was going to be something that, when they dug up that whole hole and dug up that roundabout, I thought it was going to be something that's very exciting for what do we get? Well, that represented Christmas, or represent the future of Bermuda? I'm not sure. Did it represent the congestion that we have in our housing? Did it represent the potential blight on the south roundabout, when you got a couple of trees coming out of the ground with all that soil taken up and put back in again? A lot of manpower, a lot of money was spent
To do nothing.
to make what type of statement?
It made.
And so now we want to take over the corporation of Hamilton and do what? We've already insulted a big chunk of Hamilton by saying, by the way, we're going to look after our zone. The economic zone is going to be stretched from King Street, I'm glad my building's in it, down to the rest of Hamilton, then go up Court Street and then go back a ton. What you're saying is, I'm going to look after people who look like me and encourage that development. But the people that from Court Street going that way, they don't get a piece of pie. And their buildings are as bad a shape as the buildings on the other side. I'm sorry. I believe that we should be looking out for all the people of Bermuda. We should be seen to be being fair and just, not be seen to be partial and trying to convince people that I'm going to look after you because you're a particular way. Court Street needs to be developed, but Court Street needs to be developed in concert with the rest of Hamilton. Hamilton, period.
On that note, we'll be right back.
The show will resume after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Find out what's the general state of our country. What's the current situation? What must we do? Find out on The State of Affairs with Trevor Lindsay.
Thank you for joining us and welcome back. Just before the break, we spoke about the Court Street area. We called it back of town.
Yeah.
They call it now East Hamilton.
Yeah.
I've noticed a whole change of the demographics in the Court Street area. Those that are living in the area, Filipinos, individuals from Dominican Republic, Sri Lankans. Is our demographic changing in Bermuda, Sir John?
Well, I mean, the demographic is changing, no question about it. If our birth rate is falling the way it is, and we need manpower, resources, we have to find out where we can get them from. And we've been, one time we got a lot of people from the Azores, landscapers and workers and so forth. But Azores I was visiting Azores. I visited twice recently, and the last time I was during August. And I noticed that they really have come up a long way, and people, Bermudians, Azorians, now going back home to live and try to sort of live a comfortable life and get out of some of this conflict that's happened. We're now having a Filipino, and thank God, that because they're wonderful people, don't get in trouble. Their population is quite large in Bermuda, and I think that eventually they'll be the third largest grouping. Maybe one of these days be the second largest grouping as our birth rate falls. But you have Indians and Sri Lankans and people from all parts of Asia coming. But even they are finding now the cost of living here and so forth, and and being able to, and because they can't bring their families, they have to send the money home, and that's another part of our economy that's done a number on us. We have all these people come from these third world countries.
A lot of money's leaving.
Well, and on top of that, they're here and they do jobs, and they live as meagerly as possible because they got to support a family home because they can't bring their family here, and they want to retire at the age of around 50 or so. and go back home. So they try to build a house or two in their countries. Their dollar, Bermuda dollar, goes a long way in their country. And that's the whole sort of mismatch that happens. So a person comes from Philippines, they do a nice job, they work hard. I give them credit, or they come from India, and they do it. They get paid the same wage a median gets paid. But they send that dollar home, though, it's like worth probably 10, 15, 20 times more. So which means the fact that they can build a house, educate their children, save money, and build maybe another house. The Bermudian, on the other hand, living here with inflation, got a family, can't make ends meet, and have effect and have to leave the country. There's a mismatch of human involvement that one can do well. So the expat can come here and do well. He can come here and get jobs working for the international companies, working for local companies, and do well. The Bermudian, on the other hand, is stuck here with family and having to try to meet costs and so forth, and then retire here, whereas the person going back to a third world country can retire and be comfortable. The only place that Bermudian can retire is in England, but he better get there early enough that he can get himself established, or she can get herself established. I think, we need to sort of try to figure out how we're going to really retool Bermuda. And I think Bermuda needs an overall plan. We don't have an overall plan of Bermuda. When I try to get that thought going some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, working with Sherilyn Berg and a few others, I try to look at from Somerset, Dockyard, all the way down to St. George's. And we should have a plan that says, we're going to do these things. And I even had a plan by which, and I gave it to government, that said, when we grow our economy, we should grow our economy, and there should be a trust that every Bermudian has a share in. But those people at the lower end would get the benefits the most, and at the upper end, because they're already earning money, so it would be a cost of living adjustment process. So the people who can find jobs or can for various reasons, and because demographics and birth don't produce everybody as a genius, or they can find their way in their field of interest as readily as some others, because some others have parents that guide them, or whatever the case might be, have means that guide them, or else they have a different sort of they want to be an artist, or they want to be a musician, or they want to be whatever they want to be, and it doesn't give them the type of income. And you can't force somebody to be something that they don't have a innate interest in being that something. So what we've done is the trust would do that. And I've laid out from Somerset to St. George's a plan, and then come up with a trust, and even gave the government a plan, the premier the plan, that if we wanted to put a casino in Hamilton, where the old court place is on Front Street, on Court Street, on the corner there, and do it electronically so that every Bermudian would own it, that trust would own it, and it would be done electronically, so you wouldn't have to have the banking arranged. It'd be credit card swipe system. So behind the scenes, I've done a fair amount of work in doing these things. But quite frank with you, I might as well not have done them, because I spent money doing them. I had to pay Lindbergh and Simmons for it and everything else. I got acknowledged that they've received it. I haven't heard from them since.
Well,
that's the way it is.
Let me just state that I have nothing against our guest workers that are here in Bermuda. I'm going to use this demographics for an example. Sojourn, we see, you spoke about, and I see a lot of derelict buildings, houses, derelict buildings, families that are fighting over properties.
Yeah.
And by the time they do sell them, that's where the PRCs are getting these properties. And it seems that there's no, well, you said it earlier, banks
PRCs are getting some very nice properties, because some of the people who are doctors and some who are lawyers who can't afford to keep them up, or the children who inherit. One family who's got 2 or 3 children, and when they die, the kids have to sell the property because each one of them wants a separate of it. And who buys them? As recently, anyhow, it's been these people getting their PRCs and getting their, what they call it, job creation PRCs.
How do we fix that?
Well, we fix it by
How do we give the advantage back to the Bermudian?
by first of all, we got to take and pay our debt, pay down something on. You can promise Bermudian everything you want and tell them you can do everything for him. The banks aren't loaning Bermudians very much money. The PRC people have saved up their money. They're earning good money working for these international companies. They don't have the type of expenses that Bermudians have, and therefore they're able to take and buy these Bermudian properties. And I suspect that some by 70–80% of these properties being sold now are being bought in that fashion. Because from what I understand is that the banks have a very clear policy now, is the fact that you have to earn enough money that you can satisfy, that you meet your cost of living. And then on top of that, you have to have some cash. On top of that, then you have to be able to service the mortgage, which makes it virtually impossible for people to borrow. So Bermudians really aren't able to borrow money, except unless they inherited something that's big enough that they can sell it and buy something. And what they end up doing is buying apartments. And since apartments are scarce, they end up really, in a sense, holding on to that cash until it dissipates. Because if the cost of living index is running at 6%, and I suspect Bermuda's probably about 7%, 8%. Not this either if it's 2 or 3%. It's the biggest con game there is. Look, and so the end result is your money is diminishing if you hold on to cash for 10 years, and it's diminishing at 6%.
Did we make a big mistake giving away our 3 banks? Or selling?
We didn't give away anything. The banks were practically bankrupt, and they had to sell them. The Bank of Bermuda couldn't meet the capital requirements that these international businesses wanted to take and come to Bermuda and put deposits in the local businesses, and they had to sell in order to survive. Bank of Butterfield went through the same process and really went through a wrenching period in that they're the 2 banks that count the most in Bermuda.
Clarion?
Clarion Bank, which was Provident Bank, which became
Gibbons.
Well, you had Gibbons Bank, and the same thing Gibbons Bank had. It went through a rough patch and requiring more and more capital by the monetary authority to cover. There are regulations and compliance requirements. Today, if you're in business, the compliance requirements are like running a business by itself. I know I run my business, and I have one of my children, and all she does is spend time damn compliance and licenses and compliance. And I don't know how any small business can survive, particularly if you're anywhere in the financial business. So how do you fix it? You fix it, first of all, by injecting plans in your economy. If you have a problem, and you say, I'm going to fix it just by sitting by and thinking about it, but I'm not going to do anything about it, the problem gets worse.
Yeah.
You got to have a master plan. You got to sit down and get the best brains that you can find, and come up with a master plan.
Get some advice.
And get some advice that says that these are the things we can do. We're going to pass legislation. We're not going to say, oh yeah, you can do this. And if you think of something else, we can do this. And if you think of something else, we can do this. The world doesn't want an ad hoc, particularly if you've been in trouble and you go to your banker and you say, by the way, I'm doing this and doing that. The banker looks at you and says, well, what are you doing that's going to make it possible for me to loan you money? Oh, I haven't thought about that. That's our state we're in right now. And it's not, and it's a big job to do, to say to other people, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I need some help. And I want you to come in and help me to do it. And by the way, I'm going to commit myself that as long as it's reasonable, I'm going to do it. Because I know the fact that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. All my life. I've humbled myself to people. And if you ask me, what is it that made John Swan, both business-wise and even today, and politically wise, is when I humble myself to people and told them I needed help, really help. I got it. And the end result is, I can say I stand here today. You talked about the Bermuda success story. You can see my business. I'm not bragging. It's a well-organized business, but I can tell you, I constantly seek help. Then I seek help, humble myself, as you probably know or might not know. When I go abroad and go into some of these think tanks and people who really know what the hell they're doing, I listen to it. And I think it was Lord Mountbatten who taught me one thing: learn to listen and listen to learn. And then take what you have and give it in a meaningful way back as a result of your experience. We're not doing that. All we're doing is saying, you know, you should like us because we are in charge, or we are the opposition, and in other words, they're taking their legal constitutional position and thinking that's the key to satisfying the people's needs. It's not. It is knowing what the people's needs are, seeking help to find a solution. And Bermuda can get out of this mess. It can get, I guarantee you, we got out of it back in 1982, from 82 to 90. By 90, we were booming, right? I see us coming out of this mess again, booming. But we're not going to get out of it by just keep doing the same thing. You know, like being on a Ferris go-round wheel. You're on the wheel, you go on, you say hello to somebody you saw, and you come back to that person again. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you again. Back around again. Hey, good to see you again. That doesn't solve a damn problem. We've got to be saying, I see you, and I ask you to help me to stop this Ferris wheel. Let me get off and help me to go where I need to go to get on to the next entertainment facility, so I can have some variety in my experience than to be stuck on the same Ferris wheel all the time. So, and Bermuda just needs to do it. You know, we just got to humble ourselves and ask for help. The British, they know how to help us. The Americans know how to help us. The Canadians know how to help us. And if we have to go to the Caribbean and ask for help, we do it. I'm not sure whether they have what we need for help at this particular time. And I think we send a message to the rest of the world. By the way, you're not that important. We'd like to be in CARICOM instead of trying to work with you and with NATO, with the European Commission, with the Americans, and even with their politics. There's opportunity, you know. We tend to sort of poo-hoo those people have given us what we had. That's what it boils down to. Caribbean didn't give it to us. It was Americans that gave it to us. American tourists, the bulk of them came from United States.
Coast.
Britain gave us a standing that said this is a British territory. There's an appellant process to the Supreme Court. There is a tradition and customs of parliamentary democracy, which is supposed to be open and fair. You know, forget about what you like or don't like British people. It's the system that you liked. But what happened? We've bastardized the system, not by changing it, but by not utilizing it the way it can be utilized to our best interest.
One might say that the colonial system has not worked for people of color.
No. Colonialism could work for us. We haven't worked for ourselves.
Okay.
That's the difference. You know, it's easy to throw these phrases out, colonialism, and colonialism hasn't worked for. Colonialism is, what is it? It's a group of British Commonwealth countries that has the parliamentary Westminster system in it. But it's up to you to make use of it. It doesn't work for you because you don't make it work for you. It doesn't impose anything on you, you know. You impose things on yourself. So Pogo says, I found the enemy. The enemy is me. The day you look in the mirror, can you ask yourself, who's telling the greatest lies?
Wow.
Look in the mirror. Was that Michael Jackson?
Man in the mirror. Man in the mirror.
Yeah. And so we need to look in the mirror. And I think we all need to go home tonight and look in the mirror and say, number one, do I love Bermuda?
Yes, sir.
Am I committed to Bermuda? Am I committed to making things better for everybody? And you know something? When we do that and we humble ourselves, the foreigner who was giving us so much will give us a lot more.
Oh, wow.
He's got so much to give. They're here making gobs of money, and we're here bitching and moaning with each other. You ever seen that? You know how it suffers? When you have a child at home or children at home, and the mother and father are clashing, guess who gets hurt the most?
Children.
Not the mother and father,
The children.
but the children.
Good stuff.
So the very same thing is happening to our citizens, because we have created this image that I'm in charge and you should understand what I want to do. Goddamn well do it, because your people are leaving and leaving fast. They're jumping ship. And when people jump ship, they don't do it because they want to do it. They do it because the ship is sinking and they want to get the hell off, because the tide will pull them down in the process. You ever seen a sinking ship? It not just doesn't go down, but everything that's around it
pulls it
down with it.
That's right. Wow.
So I beg Bermudians, and I beg our government to make sure the ship is buoyant, make sure it has a compass, make sure it knows direction it needs to go, and make sure that if you don't know where it's going, get some help so we can find out where we need to get to. We've done it before. You know, the Reagan administration, local people like Mike Murphy and Saul Frumpkin and many others who were here, and the business community, which I had to whip into state, they didn't want me to negotiate the treaty until I told them, you will either be in this room and work with me, or else you're out, and don't come back in once you're out. When you're in, you're in, and when you're out, you're out. And eventually I got the banks and the insurance companies and the law firm, because they thought they still ran Bermuda. That was my first real challenge, to get them to. And then we mapped out a plan. And when they went for that treaty, we knew what we were going to go for. It was a plot of a plan. And then they began to respect the leadership of what was done. And even read the newspapers. They still were picking and moaning and groaning. But there was a plan. We don't have a plan.
On that note, so John, I want to thank you. It sounds that we have a lot of brilliant minds still in Bermuda to help us to overcome where we are today.
Seek help.
Ask for help.
Help.
We got tourism season starting next month.
Tourism not going to bring you the dollars you need. I don't care what you need.
But our roads.
Not just roads. You don't have the shops in Hamilton to buy anything with.
A lot of empty places.
You don't have the transportation system breaks down in the summertime.
So with the cruise ships coming in, it's just sun, beach, and back on the cruise.
17% of our GDP, right? 17% of our GDP in tourism. The rest of it, almost international business. What does it tell you?
Wow.
You double your tourism, you're still not going to get
the money.
And if you double your tourism, you don't have sufficient transportation. You got god-awful road. You don't have the hotel, so you can't even double your tourism. That's not the answer. We have in our DNA tourism, like the Tolbert brothers and Hubert Smith and everything else like that, and what Smiths and Tringham used to be. The world has moved on to Amazon. The world has moved on to, really now, a virtual world that you can go almost anywhere with and stay home. But if you go somewhere, and when the cruise industry is so successful, they bring people to Bermuda. They leave New York, they come to Bermuda, they game, and they on the boat and have entertainment. They arrive in Bermuda, they're still gaming and entertainment at night. And at daytime, they go out and they go to Horseshoe Bay. So a few of them hire some bicycles and get in these minivans in big numbers and pay very little. Tourism is not going to be if Southampton Princess is open.
It's another program.
It helps the international business that gives us our bread and butter, because it means more airlines will come from different destinations to Bermuda. but it does not help to solve the problems that we have. We've got to step beyond that and recognize, and this is where Cayman has done a great job. I mean, we pooh-hooed Cayman long enough until now they're pooh-hooing us.
Wow.
In other words, the shoes are not on the other foot now. I would not want to. I've been to Cayman. I would not want to live in Cayman. It's flat, it's boring, a lot of mosquitoes, and if the weather gets really bad, it can be really bad down there. It's what water level. But the fact of the matter is, while we thought that we could hold on to Bermuda and guide Bermuda,
hotel structure there.
and it's just Cayman had it was very simple. Cayman had a bunch of fishermen and farmers, or whatever the case might be, people, something like 14,000, 12,000 people by the time they got started. And they were all from Jamaica and from the Caribbean. They were all black. It wasn't an issue of race in Cayman. And so when the whites came with their ideas, and they had nothing, they were glad to embrace them. There was no, you're taken from me, you kept me enslaved, you've done this and done that to me. So Cayman had a different genesis. And when you have a different genesis, your impetus is different. By the time they woke up and found out that they had lost their country, and almost by one man single-handedly pumping billions into a billion more into the country, Cayman basically said, well, it's happening now, and we're just going to let it happen. Race didn't get involved, and now they are a minority in the country, and the country's taken off. I would not want to live in Cayman or be a Caymanian. I want to be a Bermudian. But I want a Bermuda that suits Bermudians, but also accommodates the foreigner, who's our bread and butter. We are no longer bread and butter producers. 95% of U.S. dollars earned, that's dollars that comes from overseas into Bermuda, that services Bermuda, are foreign-earned dollars. Companies that are here, whether they're law firms, accounting firms, telecommunications firms, supermarkets are secondary. You go in a supermarket, you pay for it with Bermuda dollars, or you pay with U.S. dollars. So people are buying, work for a company, international company, go and buy in a supermarket. So supermarkets don't earn except for a few tourists that come here, buy goods from us. So we're not now, as we used to be, a big U.S. dollar earner. And so I worry that the local economy, that's why the banks, I think, don't want to admit it, seeing their deposits drop, because as the international, in particular with new insurance coming in and so forth, and with the small shrinking local population, and with the foreigner sending his money overseas to his home, the amount of U.S. dollar balance or trade balances has to shrink. And that's what worries me, because it means the fact that we've got less of a dollar pool than we pretend we've got. The thing that has saved us is HSBC, is not Bank of Bermuda is not Bank of Bermuda, it's HSBC, a big bank that happens to stand behind Bank of Bermuda. Bank of Butterfield, which is our next big bank, has Guernsey, and it has Guernsey and one other destination. It will come back to me again. Cayman. They earn more money in Cayman and Guernsey than they earn in Bermuda.
Wow.
Yet we got all this big international business, because international business now doesn't have to do with, we don't have any foreign exchange. It now can deal with any bank it wants, and it deals with this bank in New York, so they get paid their money into their bank account. So we've got an upside-down economy, right? And what saved Cayman is it's growing and it's putting money into construction, and the construction and occupying space and getting payment for services and licenses. We are not putting money into construction. We haven't allowed it. We haven't defined it. And we're not a free market economy yet. And free market means you tell me I can do something by the government. Don't hang me up by a lot of red tape and treat me after that like, oh yeah, you can do it, but here are all the parameters, and the civil servants can stop you, even though the government said you can do it, and a whole lot of red tape. And the end result is people say, I can't be bothered. I mean, they promise me something. They tell me I can do something. I'm prepared to put my money into it. But God, what I've got to go through. And I have people coming to me from Tucker's Point to Tuckerstown to Hamilton saying, I got a commitment, but it's not worth anything because the civil servants say one thing and the government says something else. Who the hell's running the country? If I run my business, I give my manager a responsibility. If he can't do it, I have to get another manager. Mm-hmm. I can't run my business and expect it to perform in a certain way. And all it does, it ends up being a mismatch. John Swan said one thing, and my manager said something else. Who do I trust? And so people lose trust. And foreigners and Bermudians have lost trust because of this mismatch that's taken place. We got to stop all this hocus pocus stuff that's going on and just be honest and straightforward. We're in trouble, folks. We've all got to work together. We've got to sort of find a platform by which we work to solve this problem. If you got some ideas, don't ask me for my ideas and then turn around and completely ignore me. I mean, I saw Balco the other day in trouble. It won't be in trouble. Now they tell me they dug the water up and they said water's okay to drink, but I know it's a big bloody lie. I also know the fact that if you keep over there and get that soot into your system, it could theoretically change your DNA because it's chemical. Mm. And so when you get in your DNA and you pass it on, then you go out and marry somebody, you don't know who you're taking that down St. George's and marrying somebody down St. George's and produce a baby. You don't know what effect that has on that child. Mm. This thing is more serious than you think it is. Wow. So we need to find a solution. And I said to him, Larry Birch and I fought against putting in hydrocarbon, high level of carbon oil in Belco. They wouldn't listen to us. In fact, we fought against them selling Belco because we thought that should be one thing Bermuda needs and needs the power. Somebody convinced the powers that be. And one guy came to me, and I'll forget, he came to me.
Somebody had convinced this administration.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
Convinced me, tried to come to me, convince me to drop my opposition. And he told me why. He says, I stand to make $30 million. I'm here as advisor to Balco and Gemco putting a deal together. He says, and you're trying to mess it up for me. I asked him, please leave my office and never come back in this office again. So we went to the authority. We made our case to the authority. We went to the public, made our case, and we were completely ignored. And we said, this is the worst deal for Bermuda. The company didn't have a lot of debt. The company could borrow money to take and do what it needs to do and continue to serve Bermuda. The company needs to get out of oil. I subsequently went back to Balco and said, here's the proposition. You can continue to whether the water there is pure or not, putting that soot in the air and trying to buy up the properties, keep people quiet. It's a human issue that needs to be resolved. The way to do it is very simple. Government owns property at Morgan's Point. Put a small LNG plant there with this fuel supply, and then take the LNG plant that's at Balco and put it down in St. George's. So when a ship comes in and put LNG, they can do St. George's, and they can do that, and you tie your line back. You want so that, and by the way, get Bermudians to fund the supply itself on those two LNG plants, or issue bonds for them. And the end result would be You could take out the plant, and both plants in Pembroke. Pembroke becomes the distribution administration. You solve a whole lot of problems that way. And I haven't heard anything in the last 6 months about that. All of a sudden, it's going there. We're going to solve the problem because it's not so bad, and we're going to try to make it a little better by maybe putting some. It doesn't go away. So, see, so what's happening is people got to a stage where I figured I can't offer any help. Why should I continue to rack my brains when nobody is prepared to listen? And if they listen, it's a momentary until they meet the next subject up the street. And the end result is everything dies in the process. And all we've had in Bermuda really is a slow death of our infrastructure.
Sounds like we got room for another discussion. So, John, we're going to end it right there, but we are going to come back just after the budget and hear from Sir John.
Look forward to talking to you, Trevor. You are, as I said at the very beginning of the show, you can be provocative, you can ask questions. I can only give you what I see and how I feel and the knowledge I try to acquire both locally and internationally. And I will always look out for the best interest of Bermuda. I'm not always right. I can be wrong. But at least I'm not going to be afraid to express my views.
Good stuff. I appreciate your input. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for our next program just after the budget. This is State of Affairs. I'm Trevor Lindsay. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for watching The State of Affairs with Trevor Lindsay. See you next time.